What is happening, gamer guys, gamer girls, and gamer people? It is I, Papa Sig, and I haven't made a review in like 2 months because they stopped making Fear Street movies. Well, I've got one for you today, and that is I'm going to be reviewing Metroid Dread for the Nintendo Switch. Metroid Dread came out last Friday, and I have been playing it since release. I just finished it about 10 minutes ago, and I gotta say, it's gonna be up there for one of my games of the year, for sure. I love Metroidvanias, although I have never actually played a mainline Metroid game. I've played some of the Prime games, but I've never actually played a mainline Metroid game. I've played games like Hollow Knight and Ori and the Blind Forest, stuff that's Metroidvania-ish. Oh, and Bloodstained, but I have never played a mainline Metroid game until Metroid Dread. Now, going in, I didn't know much about the Super Metroid lore. I had to go back and I had to watch a couple of videos to get caught up on the lore and find out that the baby Metroid saved Samus like 3 games out of the 5. And so going in, was I missing a little bit of that connection? You know, was I missing a little bit of that personal relation with the series? I would say probably. Do I want to go back and play the old ones? Maybe. I can play them on Nintendo Switch Online, at least a few of them. So do I want to do that? I might go back and eventually do that. Because this game, Metroid Dread, was absolutely phenomenal from start to finish. So being a Metroid game, you play as Samus Aran, a bounty hunter, who has to travel to different planets, and in this game she's traveling to whatever the name of the planet was, like ZDR, DDR, Dance Dance Revolution, and she goes there for a purpose, and she loses all of her abilities as is Metroid fame, and then she has to go over a variety of different biomes with varying enemy types to try to recover all of her abilities and piece together what's going on this planet. Now, something that is not totally apparent is the story, which I've already mentioned. You have to know what's going on through the last 4 games, so you kind of need to watch a recap in order to understand the story beats. But that being said, there aren't, like, the story isn't just like exposited at you, there's not that much to figure out, really. Even if you haven't played the older games, like, it kind of still makes sense. But playing the older games would have helped. I think the number one thing this game has going for it right now is its movement and its combat. The movement is so fast, so responsive, and so tight that it was just a pleasure. Like, the second you picked it up, you were like, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm gonna go hunt down I'm gonna go explore these maps. I'm gonna go explore these different regions and just have a really good time filling out the combat. And I'm gonna put some gameplay up throughout this. It might have already been running, but I'm not gonna put anything up past like the first 2 biomes because I don't want to spoil things for you guys. The only time where the movement gets a little cumbersome is when you unlock certain abilities later on, where you have to like claw your hands to perform the motion. I'll use the word Shine Spark if anyone's played the game. To use the Shine Spark is kind of a Herculean task, and it's good for traversal, like fast traversal, but then like you only really need to use it contextually 1 time, and that rings true of a couple of other abilities as well. But it's not the worst thing in the world. Like, once you get the muscle memory down, it's not so bad, but there's a couple of things that don't feel terrific, and it's mostly the Shine Spark. The bosses in this game were just so good. Just so good. The first one you face really early on, I'm not going to spoil it, every boss is challenging. Like, you will most likely not beat a boss on your first run of this game. It will likely take you 3, 5, 10, and in the event of the final boss, like 50 tries to beat it, because they're difficult. But once you have their pattern down, you feel like Batman, once you get their pattern down, you're able to take them on and win without too much of a hassle. It does take multiple attempts, and being a huge Dark Souls veteran, I'm not saying this game's like Dark Souls at all, but just having like that same mindset of throwing yourself at a brick wall over and over again and learning what your enemy does is so much fun to do that I really just I don't know, I thought most of the bosses in this game were exceptional. Now, the main selling point for this game, what was all over the promotional material, were the introduction of this new enemy type called Emmys. These are all over the promotional material. It's not a spoiler. There's like 6 or 7 of them in the game, and they're these robots that occupy special zones in the map that they put like a Instagram filter on when you go through them, and they will hunt you down using sound, and if they get you, you have a 0.5 nanosecond window to parry their attack. It's extremely hard to do. As the game goes on, you do kind of get better at it. Early on, I couldn't parry them to save my life, and by the end, I could parry them probably like at like a 20% rate. Like, I was getting kind of lucky with them. Parrying's also a massive part of the game, and it helps you get health and resources back really fast, and it's a great way to stay alive. And these Emmys are like, they start off, you get the tutorial one where it's like you kill them really fast, it's not hard to do. And then later on, once you kill them once, you don't have the ability to kill it again. You have to search the map for something that will upgrade Samus's weaponry just for a specific Emmy encounter. And then once you kill that Emmy, you obtain another ability that lets you go and progress through the game with just different, movement abilities or blaster abilities, stuff like that. All really cool stuff, really, and every Emmy encounter is really honestly pretty unique. They all have like this, and the AI is extremely, extremely intelligent to a rather frightening degree at times. You can kind of exploit it a little bit, but they can usually catch up to you pretty fast. I also want to commend the atmosphere. On top of awesome level design and great maneuverability, I think the music and score of the game, it's very quiet, very subdued, but it's always in the background, and except for in boss fights, but it's always it just drips with atmosphere, and it's just a pleasure to listen to. I'm not saying it's, Hans Zimmer, you're not going to be wagging your finger to it in the future, but I think that in the context of the game, I think it's very, very good, and I just enjoyed listening to it the entire time. Now, with all of those positives out of the way, I don't really have that much negative to say. I want to touch on 2 little things, and they're mostly, well, I already touched on the movement earlier, but I want to touch on a couple of the bosses, so this is kind of a spoiler. Some of the bosses are extremely unique and very different encounters, which are great. You'll know what I'm talking about, but then you do repeat boss encounters quite a few times against 2 different boss types. One of them is like they're kind of like mini bosses. They're kind of like a test your strength kind of thing. The first time you fight one, it's super cool. The second time you fight one, you have to fight 2 of them at the same time, and it's really not fun because it's kind of like their AI is really good. I did get to a point where I actually like locked them in place where they were only moving between 2 places, so I did kind of exploit them in that way. But otherwise, they're extremely, extremely hard to lure into certain patterns, which isn't a bad thing. I just think that they're outrageously, I just found them extremely difficult. I thought they were probably the second hardest boss in the game. There was one boss that had like a really unique concept that I was like really into. I really like it was in a water area. That I was like, okay, I'm down for this. And then you do something one time and then it's dead. The encounter lasted like, if you knew what you were doing, it lasted about 1 minute. And I thought that was extremely short for the encounter because it could have been way better. The last gripe I have, and this one's completely personal, I just finished beating the game like I said. And the final boss of the game is pretty freaking awesome. It took me 30-40 tries to beat. It was very tough, and that is mostly due to its second phase. The first phase took a couple of tries to get used to. I'll admit, I died probably 7-8 times to it, but then I got to the point where I could complete it without taking any net damage. And then the second phase comes around, and all bets are out the window. You are completely unaware of, like, you have, like, it's just a bunch of BS. There's some tough parts. It took me the longest. I had beat the first phase in my sleep now. The second phase took me quite a few tries to beat, and I don't even know how I beat it, to be honest with you. It's mostly due to your screw attack ability just being, like, kind of inconsistent, where the double jump, when you get the double jump later on, the double jump has a mind of its own on if it's actually going to allow you to double jump. You have to be spinning. That's the only qualification, I believe. And so sometimes you'll be spinning, like, in your jump, and then you'll try to jump again, and it just won't do it, and you'll fall right into the boss's attack, and there's nothing you could have done about it. And so I pretty much only beat him when luck was on my side. But overall, great. The third phase of the final boss was honestly pretty easy. It's just the first phase with a little bit more steps. So overall, I truthfully really loved this game. I haven't played that many new games in 2021 yet. I have to go back and revisit Persona 5 Strikers to beat it, so that way at the end of the year I can have a genuine top 5 games of the year. But I really loved Metroid Dread. So with all the positives, with the decent story, with the music, with the bosses, with the Emmys, with the environments and the movement, I am going to give this game a 9.5 out of 10, 95% on the scale, on the moist meter scale if you're critical. But this game's getting a huge grade from me, and by the end of the year, I expect this game to be in my top 3 favorite games that released in 2021. So if you enjoyed the video, if you enjoyed Metroid, if you enjoyed it and thought that this was a decent review, consider dropping that like and subscribing, and letting me know how it was in the comment section down below. I don't make a whole lot of YouTube videos right now because of school, but I really wanted to get this one out because it was really good. It was really good, and I wanted to talk about it. So thank you guys so much for your time, and I'll see you next time. Peace out. Body and work.